Welcome to the first episode of my podcast. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to join me today. I'll be your host, Alexa Rodriguez. This is a bit of a controversial topic, and it's important to bring light to this issue. Today, we will be talking about the death penalty. So, the opinion of the death penalty truly varies between political party, race, and ethnicity. Many people already know, but in case you don't, the death penalty is imposed on defendants convicted of capital offenses. This includes crimes like murder, treason, genocide, and the killing and kidnapping of a congressman, the president, or a Supreme Court justice. Unlike other punishments, a jury must decide whether or not to recommend the death penalty to a judge. In my opinion, death row is unethical and inhumane. Though inmates may deserve to serve time for what they did, sentencing to death is both painful and sad for the family. Some ways of execution might be seen as painless, but they have failed and been botched. Guards have both purposefully and mistakenly messed up the execution, causing excruciating pain and suffering. I think that though people can do pretty awful things, putting people through pain is more than evil. I think that murder is practically the same as execution. I do recognize that some people may see the death penalty as an eye for an eye, and though justice is needed for closure and peace for a victim's family, killing a person, innocent or not, is pretty wrong. Plus, if you think about it, there are more effective ways of giving closure to a family, such as giving the prisoner more time in prison to think about what they did, and putting them in solitary confinement. As of 2023, 21 states allow the death sentence, including Washington and California. 6 of those states, however, do require governor approval. The U.S. is 5th for the most executions in the last year, behind China, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. A survey showed that within the 50 states, 6 in 10 U.S. adults strongly, or at least somewhat, support the death penalty. Something else that proves that there isn't a good enough system in place for this sentencing is people such as Carlos de Luna, Larry Griffin, Troy Davis, and Nathaniel Woods that have been executed innocently. Though there was not enough concrete evidence to find them guilty, the circumstantial evidence can oftentimes be enough to convince a jury of guilt. And after execution, there is only a small chance of new evidence that could prove innocence or solidify guilt. This is where it gets a little bit more, dare I say, graphic, and also some big words, so please bear with me. Many people who are innocently executed or sentenced to death row have been framed for rape, murder, or both. The most utilized method of execution is lethal injection, which is a cocktail of pancuronium bromide, which is used to cause muscle paralysis and respiratory arrest, potassium chloride to stop the heart, and midazolam for sedation. Washington is one of the few states that does a single dose injection of sodium thiopental instead of the 3-dose drug that I described before, and this was as of 2010. However, electrocution, gas chamber hanging, and the ring squad are also utilized quite a bit. There has been many other means of execution throughout history that are hopefully not used now. This includes rat torture, scaphism, decapitation, death by boiling, and the goat's tongue. But hey, if you're looking for maybe a possibly good reason to get onto death row, usually inmates that are on death row are granted a last meal, or it's also called special meals. If inmates decline this meal, they're given the meal of the day. And last meals also do not have to be granted. If an inmate's last meal request goes above a certain dollar limit, they may be rejected, but it depends on the state. Like some states, the limit is $25, and some states, the limit is $60. Alcohol and tobacco can also be denied. However, some states do allow it, and a lot of the times will alter their policies just because they feel bad for killing someone. Some prisons not only deny requests, but reserve the right to alter prisoners' requests a good example of this, and you might want to remember this name for later on, Thomas J. Grasso requested SpaghettiOs, but was very upset when he was presented with regular spaghetti. And don't worry, there has been plenty of other odd last meal requests, to say the least. Some inmates asking for a lot of things. Some inmates ask for a pit of an olive or a lump of dirt. Some inmates, however, that have this big last meal request, don't eat it. An inmate requested 2 chicken fried steaks smothered in gravy with sliced onions, a triple meat cheeseburger with fixings on the side, a cheese omelet with ground beef, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, and jalapeno, a large bowl of fried okra with ketchup, 1 pound of barbecue with half a loaf of white bread, 3 fajitas with fixings, a meat lover's pizza, 3 root beers, 1 pint of Bluebell vanilla ice cream, and finally a slab of peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts. His request was granted, however, when it was presented to him, he refused the meal, saying he was simply just not hungry anymore. He was kind of screwed everyone out of a chance for the final meal in Texas, because after he refused to eat any of this big meal that they brought him, Texas stopped granting last meal requests to condemned inmates. Some of these things that people requested are very cheap and honestly kind of pointless to refuse, but dirt has been requested, and like the pit of an olive, because I don't know, the inmates wanted to be original, let them do them. Right? If you're interested in learning more about the death penalty or what it's all about, a few things to keep in mind are the moratorium, which is a legal authorization to debtors to postpone a payment, or like a temporary pause of an activity. So if someone is put on death row and a moratorium is imposed, people can no longer be put on death row for a few years, depending on how much is put onto that sentence. Another thing to maybe research or just to know about how unfair this death row prison system truly is, about 90% of all people that face capital charges cannot afford their own attorney and a good lawyer. This is just another way to show like how little support people with less income get than people with more income in this system. The death penalty is usually reserved for the poor. No state, including Ohio, has met standards developed by the American Bar Association, or ABA, for appointment, performance of compensation of counsel for indigent prisoners. There's plenty of evidence to show that the death penalty is usually applied in a racist manner. In 1987, in McCleskey v. Kemp, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to act on data that demonstrated the continuing reality of racial bias. In 1990, the U.S. General Accounting Office reported and I quote, pattern of evidence indicating racial disparities in charging, sentencing, and imposition of the death penalty. Anyways, as we conclude our podcast episode today, I want to say that all in all, I believe that the evidence that I have presented to you and the evidence I have found in my research has proven that the death penalty is very wrong, inhumane, and immoral. Many people who die are either innocent or targeted based on racial bias. a lot of the times the death penalty is imposed to those who do not have the money to afford a good attorney, or it is imposed to those that have been convicted of killing a white person, innocent or not. I hope all of you guys enjoyed my podcast episode today, and I hope you all learned something new. Keep in mind that though my opinion is that the death penalty isn't right, many people still believe that it is valid to want to see someone in their family get justice in this way. And also keep in mind, these people are still people, so please be respectful whether or not they're guilty. And yeah, have a great day. Bye!